we don't look at them. Well, good morning, everybody. Tell you what, that Mr. Carter that was up here, brilliant. His use of questions. I tell you what, if you heard one talk all weekend you want to apply, you learn that. Today, I have a little different goal today. We have a lot of very intelligent people, and I think sometimes when you hear those kind of questions, you want to use those. You get home, they don't always work for you. I talked to Pete Reed one time, and somebody said something like, well, I only need one. Now, Pete's extremely intelligent, but sometimes people are too smart. So Pete would say, well, where are you going to put that one? Okay? I use Pete because he is so smart, but I'm going to teach you guys, I shared this with Pete already, but I'm going to teach you guys how to bridge that gap on every type of conversation. So you can use those questions that David Carter just talked about and use them more effectively. And this is so basic, you're going to say, well, this is ridiculous. But it's so basic, but it will work on preventing objections, handling objections, communications. It'll help you with your recruiting. When you sit down with somebody, like I sat with a medical doctor last night or an eye doctor, had some extremely good questions that were bothering him about moving forward, stuff he'd read on the internet. And after the end of the conversation, I felt we accomplished a lot. So you write down this one statement. It's called feel, felt, found. Now, you've all heard it before. You think, well, I'm going to hear this again. I'm going to reteach you because you all need to learn this one. Every time an objection comes up, I know mine works. It goes off when I cook. We want to think about it. I only need one. It's too much money. Can't afford. Every objection, I'll cover a couple of these today, how I cover that. But every time an objection comes up, when you want to go right to your answer because you really got it in there, Jason's been at this a long time, the first thing you say is, hey, I understand how you feel because I felt the same way. And this is what I found. Without that interjection in the middle, all you're being is a sarcastic, combative salesperson that they don't want to deal with. So I'll give you an example. Go back to the one I was talking about with Pete. When they say, I just think I need one. And when you say, well, where are you going to put it? What do you accomplish when you say that? Yeah, you put them in a difficult position. But if you looked at them and says, hey, I understand how you feel, because when I first heard about this product, I'd said, I definitely want one of those. But I started thinking about it. I go, well, where am I going to put it? I was worried about our basement, so I better have one down there. Then I'm thinking, well, that won't do me much good, because if the fire starts in my bedroom, well, I better have one in there. Well, then I'm thinking, geez, I got my two kids upstairs. I want one in Darian's room, and I want one in Dalton's room. And I'm thinking, well, what if the fire starts in that storage room? And pretty soon I'm thinking, geez, I'm such a dummy because I thought I just wanted one. You see how that works? Okay, so let's use another objection. I just think it's too much money. Man, I understand how you feel because the first time I heard the price, I'm thinking, geez, this seems like a lot of money. But then I started thinking about it. I thought, well, what do you buy that's good that isn't expensive? I mean, I seen a lady the other day that had diabetes and she had a pain pump. Anybody know or a diabetes insulin pump? Does anybody know what an insulin pump costs? Anybody take a guess? It'd be, yeah, $5,000. It's a lot of money. It's ridiculous. But you know what? If she didn't have it, what would happen? She'd die. So to her, it's the gap between life and death. So, these are simple things. So I'm going to cover a couple objections. James Grindstaff came up and asked me a question. He said he has a tough time with widows. I'm just going to show you some different applications, how a feel, felt, found. It's always the gap bridger. And she said, well, I want to talk to my son. How many have had that happen? They said they want to talk to their son before they make that decision. Okay? If you haven't had that happen, you will. And I would say to her, ma'am, I understand how you feel, because if I was in your position, I might think the same thing. But I was thinking about that. If my mom called me up and said, Dale, I just looked at this fire alarm system, and it's $2,800. And she put me in that position, and if I tell her to get it, and then I'm thinking, geez, I just spent $2,800 on my mom's money. Now I got to sit down at Christmas dinner and tell my brothers and sisters I told my mom to spend $2,800. Okay, so I got to deal with that. Or if I told my mom to not get it, and then something happens to her, then I got to deal with that. Then I think about, geez, what am I just trying to protect my inheritance? You know? So the question I had is, do you really want to put your son in that position? Okay? And then what I would finish is, because I talked to Deb about this last night, if I was gone and Deb's there, here's the question I want to ask her last. Let's just say your husband was still here. Let's just say he's sitting right there. What would he tell you to do? But you see how the feel, felt, found easily moves you forward without being combative, and it just makes such a difference. You can prevent objections. I'll give you an example. You're walking into the bedroom, and you say, you know, every once in a while somebody says, well, I just need one in the hall. That should be good enough. And I said, geez, I can understand how they feel that way because it's only 2 feet. I mean, the hall's right here and the bedroom's right there. How would that not work? That's what I thought. But then I started thinking about if that was my daughter laying in there and the fire started behind the bed, am I willing to bet that that's burning right there, that smoke could get to the ceiling, under the header, into the hall, into the alarm, before she'd breathe it? Again, that's feel, felt, found before the objection comes up. So feel, felt, found is the tool I use just about exclusively. I went down to Andy's meeting and talked to him about this and his team, and I would have salespeople, here's the objection, I have them come up and try to cover the objection, and when they didn't use the feel, felt, found, it always sounds argumentative. And I think when you get on that list of questions that David Carter talked about, you'll be able to insert that into the middle, and you just be amazed how it works. I'll give you a quick example. I was up, Jeff had me come over and do a program for him, and I was telling one of the waitresses, she was probably in her 70s, about the feel, felt, found, because I think it's just a good communication tool. So after the meeting, I went out and started my truck, and I sat down at the bar and had a pop, waiting for my truck to warm up, and I started telling this waitress who was in her 70s a story. She goes, I understand how you feel. And I didn't even catch it. It was my own stuff. She's using it on me. I go, God, I like this gal. And I said something else, and she goes, I get that. I'm with you on that, you know? And then she goes, I'm using your stuff, something like that. And I go, you were, and I didn't even catch it. That's the funny part, because it's so natural. Who wouldn't want to be understood? Who wouldn't want to be heard? Who wouldn't want to have somebody understand how you feel, right? And it'll change your life. So how do you use it on a recruiting? Somebody says, man, is this commission? And what do you say? Man, I understand that question, because when we first looked at this business, that scared the tar out of me, you know? And then I started thinking about, my brother Brian, he works for a commercial construction company. He makes 6 figures. And any one day, you know what? He can get a little letter in his mailbox. You know what it says? He don't have a job anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, how does somebody buy a house, sign a 30-year mortgage, when you know that within 2 weeks you can lose that job? That would scare the living tar out of me. And that's why, to me, I can't get fired with this job. So you can use that to bridge every gap. One of Andy's salesmen called me up right after that meeting. He says, I was just on the phone with my girlfriend, and she said that she ate too much and her stomach was upset. And he goes, I used to give her advice right away, but I said to her, hey, honey, I understand how you feel. One time I ate a whole bunch and I felt the same way. And what I found, if I just get up and do this, I felt a lot better. And his girlfriend says, thanks, honey. And he's just all fired up about that. I like this. You ready for this one? This is just a quote, and we'll come back to some more objections. And a successful person is just an average guy that's focused and disciplined. A successful person is just an average person that's focused and disciplined. Now, some people say, well, I don't have discipline. And I understand how they feel. Because I didn't feel I had discipline either until somebody that was really successful says, nobody has discipline. Everybody chooses to be disciplined. That makes sense? So if you think you don't have discipline, I understand. But that's a misnomer. So you'll hear me use this all the time. You start using the feel, felt, found. It'll just naturally flow into your conversations. It'll help you recruit. It'll help you sell. The other thing I think is really important, how much time I got? Where's the clock thing at? Huh? I don't see a clock. I got 22 minutes left? Good. All right. I watch young people at my programs when we're training people. Like, for example, on the back, Josh, I'm using you because I love you, but this is a good example. Josh is an extremely intelligent individual. And sometimes too smart. Sometimes people in this room are too smart. So he comes up to somebody and says on the back of the card, I want you to write 5 rooms where a fire would start and then the cause, if you had a fire at night. And he assumes they heard him because he said it, right? But that's a misnomer again. I believe everybody has to be told every single thing that you want them to take seriously, you have to tell them at least 3 times. So when I come up to somebody on the same topic, I'd say, now on the back of your card right here, I want you guys to write down 5 rooms, if you had a fire at night in your home, where the fire would start, then over here what would cause it. So what I want is think about a nighttime fire, you're asleep, think about your home, not somebody else's home, your home, 5 rooms where you think the fire could start at night in your house, and then what would actually cause it. So like if you put the kitchen, you'd put maybe the refrigerator, because it runs all night. And if you put the bedroom, you might put the power strip, okay? So that's 5 rooms, okay? Nighttime, your home, fire, and then the cause. I do that with everybody, every time. When I do it, you know how many cards get filled out in the back? Starts with an A. All of them. When I have new people do it, because they think, I told them. They told them, but they didn't hear it. Because people are so that's another thing I think is really key. So in your program, in your call, everything that's important, you need to repeat at least 3 times. How long has our company been around? Since what year? 1971. How many times do you say it at your program? 3 times. How many times did you say it on a call? 3 times. Okay? Repeat, 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 repeat. My kids, I drive them insane. You know why I drive them insane, my children? Because I repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat everything over and over and over again. I learned that from my mom. It's effective. Drives me crazy, but it's effective. How many in this room use a journal? How many don't use a journal? You want to make a lot more money? Get a journal. Last week, I had a firefighter from Coon Rapids, Minnesota. Everybody at the program that knew him says, well, if you sell him, it'll be amazing. In my journal, you know what it says? I was so impressed with the products and this company, and I recommend it to everyone. That's what he wrote in my journal. Firefighter, 39 years, in my journal. And when I come to the person's home, I said, well, there's Rick. Really? How many think that would be a good thing? How many in this room don't use a journal? Okay. Anybody know what a journal costs? Like $4. You can buy them at if you don't know where journals are, you can buy them at Walgreens, a little leather bound thing, and just have them write in there why they bought. They'll write in here, I love Jason Wolbers. I love the program. I love the way he treat me. No pressure. One of the nicest people I've ever met. They write stuff like that, guys. How many have people write that kind of stuff? I have to tell them, hey, tone it down on the Dale accolations in there, because they just write. I love Dale. I love the program. I love the way he treated us. That's fun, but it's good. I've said this before during your call. You better write this down. You say, if you ever do decide to get the protection. I know the old sales books would say, when you decide to get the protection. I sell Metro. People are pretty smart, Metro. When you say, when you decide to get the protection, you're being coy and they're going to catch it. But when you say, if you ever do decide to get the protection, Marlon, if you ever do decide to get this in the bedroom, you want a smoke alarm, here's why, or use what Dave said. If you ever do decide, 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 what are you doing to their brain? You're programming, okay? Subliminal. Plus, people go, when you say, hey guys, if you ever do decide to get this, what does that sound like? Unthreatening, no pressure, okay? So I'd write that one down. All right, so let's just talk about a system that will help all you new people. How do you apply all this stuff, all right? So you have write down, just take a piece of paper, write down objection. Then a filter you want to run every objection through. The first thing is what? Feel, felt, found. And then whatever way you're going to handle the objection. So if you want to make a list of your major objections, like we never decide anything on the first day. You need to have how you're going to handle that objection, but the only way you'll be effective is if you put the feel, felt, found in the middle. I'll give you an example. You're talking about the smoke detectors, and you're sitting at the table, and the gal says, well, I'd hear that. I'd hear the one in the garage. Everything wakes me up. Okay? Again, feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Geez, I used to feel the same way, because one time I remember, I always thought, well, everything would wake me up, because one time I was laying in bed, I woke up at 3 in the morning, I heard some little noise. I said, I was dumb enough to think that I would wake up to everything, because that one thing 2.5 years ago woke me up. And all these other things, all these years haven't. I've slept through storms and phone calls and, all these other things you've slept through. But I just thought I would wake up because of that one item that happened almost 2 years ago. That's how you can take those type of objections away from them. They say, well, I got on the internet and I read about the ionization combo alarm. That sounds like the way to go. Okay, how many have had that objection? A few of you? You say, hey, I understand how you feel, because when I got on there and read that, from what they said, I would have come to that same conclusion. Without knowing anything more. But here's what I found. Then you handle the objection. Okay? And I'm not going to go into, if you want me to go into detail on that one, that takes a little bit of time, but I know that Andy, we got them started using a price guarantee. I like that. So it goes objection, and then the feel, felt, found. And then I like the price guarantee built into the closing process, because if they do decide today to protect you, we give you this price guarantee. This kind of becomes a loop of information. Guess how many times I tell them there's a price guarantee? 3 times. How many have had them say, well, we don't pay interest. We're not going to get them until we can pay cash? So what would be the bridging statement at that point? I understand how you feel. Okay. I'm not going to cover all the objections today. I will give you one that I think is really powerful. It was a haunting objection I had a lot when I was first starting. And I know mine works. It goes off every time it cooks. How many have had that one? Okay. I've shared this with you guys before. But hey, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way. But I never thought about this. I had a firefighter one time tell me that actually it almost proves the opposite because, back to David Carter. Does it go off every time you cook, or is it when you cook certain things? Certain things, right? So the point he was making, if it goes off and you cook some things but not others, what do you think it's going to do when you really need it? And so once I learned that, then I was never afraid of it goes off when I cook. I think one of the questions, I wish I remember what the question was, one of the questions that David Carter asked was, man, I wrote it down too somewhere. Oh yeah. Here's what I wrote. It says, when you ask a question and that you don't get the answer that you wanted, okay, you got to be prepared for that. For example, they say, well, what type of detectors do you have? Well, I've got the good ones. What are you going to say then? Understand how you feel. I felt the same way. Let's go see what you got, and then you can kind of handle that objection from there. You say stuff like, were you surprised at the failure rate of the smoke detectors, or were you aware of that before? Had you seen some of that on TV? And they say, no, I think ours are just fine. That isn't the answer you really wanted, is it? So you have to be prepared how you're going to move forward. And again, that feel, felt, found is always going to bridge that gap in that category. So these are the things I think are important to kind of sum up here. We got a little bit more time. But you should have a protected families list. How many have that? A list of names of people that you've put systems in for in your family, in your group. I've got a book about this thick. It's probably got 14,000 names in it. Categories by town. If you don't have something started, get it started. Because everybody's getting them is the thought process. If you don't have a journal, I'd start it tomorrow. And if you've been in the business for 15 years, you can just say, this is my newest journal. Okay? That'll help you have a reason that you never had a journal before. This is my newest journal. You get to be the first entry in my newest journal. Isn't your newest journal? Okay. And again, if you ever do decide, that needs to be brought up a lot. All right, let's cover a couple more objections. How many actually have the objection come up that the combo alarm becomes a big objection for you? Anybody have that? We could cover that not too often, a few of you. Give me an objection, somebody, yell it out. Going to Florida, a couple are going to do some research. Where's Andy at? Come up here quick. Hurry up, run. After I got done with the training, Andy had that exact objection come up. It was an engineer. He said to Andy, well, I'll let him tell you, because this is key. This is really basic stuff, guys, but it'll change your selling career. So, Andy, go ahead.
Guess what I said to him first? Guess. I know how you feel. I've had a lot of people that have felt that way. We found the reason why we use this smoke alarm, the reason why my family has these, is because of the size of the smoke chamber. In order for a smoke alarm to go off, what has to happen? Smoke has to what? Get in it. And we just showed him the size of the smoke chamber, and then I opened ours up and let him see it, and he goes, oh, well, that makes sense. And then we said, the other thing you got to do is you got to keep dust out of them. So the one thing our smoke alarm does is it recalibrates itself, checking for dust to make sure it works. He said, oh, I like that. And we did the walkthrough, and we got done, and I told him about that 90-day.
Well, he had the other objection. He says, well,
oh, yeah.
I'm not going to make any
decisions.
decisions.
I don't make any decisions today. I said, man, I understand how you feel. I've had a lot of people that have felt that way. What happened? So, well, back in the 70s, a fire alarm salesman came into my parents' house, and they forced them to buy some fire protection that they couldn't afford, and that will never happen to me. Man, what a jerk. I'm sorry that he made you feel that way. One of the things that we do that we're just adamant about is our customers, they get a 90-day price-back guarantee, a cash-back guarantee. If you do decide to do this, the next 90 days you find this protection somewhere else for cheaper, I'll refund your money. So again, the key thing that I'm real comfortable with is this 90-day cash-back guarantee. I just think the 90-day cash-back guarantee is a great thing, don't you? So, yeah. We did the walkthrough, lay down. Wrote a check, lay down. So just covering the objections.
That's awesome. Thanks, Andy. Give him a round of applause. It's kind of fun when somebody actually listens to you. It's good. A couple quotes I just read here lately I thought were really good. One, in fact, I got my iPad. I better use it. One I really liked: the most important thing you can do for your children as a husband is to love their mother. Another important quote I really liked: that most parents, I see this once in a while, spend more time criticizing your children than admiring them. And you should make sure that that's weighed in a different fashion. Give you a quick story. I played basketball with a guy, really close friend of mine, and his daughter, his brother's daughter came home from school, and then she broke some curfew, and he told the man told his daughter, "I am so disappointed in you. Go to your room." The next morning, she never came out of that room. She hung herself that night at age 15. You know, people, their feelings are so, they're so close to the edge, especially as young children, and you just got to build them up and build them up and build them up. That becomes such a key thing. And I tell you, that friend I play basketball with is just broken them heavily because that burden that they have on. But it just goes to show you how when you talk with conversations, people want to be heard, they want to be felt, they want to be understood. And obviously that young woman didn't. Why she would take her life, her perspective obviously in life, that was the worst point of her life. She had nothing else to gauge it on. And when you've been through other things in your life, it's a little bit easier to gauge it on. I got an email from my brother yesterday that my mom didn't wake up on, yesterday morning, and looks like she'll probably pass away in the next 2 days, And it's probably a good thing for my mom because she's got Alzheimer's disease, and probably a blessing that the brain tumor is going to take her before she has to go down the road my dad did. But my wife and I, we made a mistake to show you how fragile people are. We had decided yesterday, well, we're not going to let the kids know, until we get back to the season. We'll tell them, well, we forgot about this little thing called Facebook. So my sister's on Facebook talking about my ma. So last night, my daughter calls up bawling, "Well, can you didn't tell us?" So, we always process information and based upon our little lives, and we forget about how other people's lives are so important. And I think if you really, when you talk with people, if you really share with them how much you care about them, actually listen to them, actually give a crap what they say. I had a lady come up to me last week. She grabbed my hand. She says, "Dale, thank you. Thank you." And it's really touching to me. But, that's one of the reasons that, for the last 5 years I've been national champion in sales, but I've done that because of Deb and the team and the Joshes in my life. But because of the way we treat people in the home, they want their friends to be exposed to us. They want their friends to get out and see our program. But if you adopt just this little thing I'm talking about today, this feel, felt, found in your conversations with your people, with your recruits, with your salespeople, potential customers, it can change your life. And I know I talked a 30-minute talk almost on the word feel, felt, found, but just can't express how massively important that'll change your life. So give that a shot. The last statement, I'll start with the first one I said. Sometimes people feel they're failures. It's impossible to fail unless you quit. Do you know how many times I have failed? Do you know how many sales calls I've missed on? The only way you're a failure is if you quit. Just remember that. When I see people that stand up and stand up and stand up and stand up, we don't look at them thinking, "Geez, what a loser." We're thinking of them, "Wow, what a champion." That person has the capability of going through more than what most people do. And so remember that. When you look at other people, people look at you in that same fashion. So I just think that's really important. We got a wonderful company. We got a leadership that's second to none. Chris Roberts, geez, how could you ask for a better president? The Jones family, they're a class act. First time we met Ray and Tony, we expected a little of this. Never got any of that. It's unbelievable. And then Brent, the lineage. I tell you what, we got a good company. We got a product that's second to none. The home front. Where's Chad, the brains of the way over here? Let's give Chad a round of applause. So with that, I got 10 seconds, 9, 8. We love you guys. Thanks for your time.